Okay, our first study in social psychology is Milgram study 1963, and its title is The Behavioural Study of Obedience. Now, the Milgram study is a groundbreaking study in psychology, and it's often repeated now. It's probably one of the easiest ones to repeat. The ethics are a bit dubious, as you'll see as we go through. Now, the background for this study came from Nazi Germany. Milgram himself is a Jew, and he wanted really to find out that there was something fundamentally different about Jews compared to English, or more important, American people, because that's where he was. And he looked at the case of Paul Eichmann. Eichmann was one of Hitler's sort of main guards, the one who led the Jews into the gas chambers. When he was interviewed, they found him to not be a monster at all, but to be an ordinary man who was simply obeying military rule, Hitler's laws. Now, Milgram really wanted to prove that the Germans were fundamentally different, and he was going to prove this by getting American people to take part in an experiment on obedience to show that it's the disposition of the person, because Americans wouldn't hurt somebody else, according to Milgram, and not the situation. So the debate we're looking at is the dispositional versus situational debate. And this is our big debate in social psychology. So the aim was to find out what level of obedience would be shown when told by an authority figure. Now, he's going to use electric shocks for this. It's quite a famous experiment. You've probably seen Darren Brown do it, for example. So he's going to use electric shocks to see if an authority figure would cause somebody to hurt another person. Now, the method's a lab experiment, but the observation technique is used. Now, it collects both types of data due to its method. It collects quantitative data, which is the voltage that the participants go to, but it also collects qualitative data such as behaviour, words of the participants, what's happening during the experiment. So two things are going on. Now, the participants are 40 males from middle-class men, all working, all in jobs, from the New Haven area, which is close to New York in America. Now, they're self-selected sample. That means they're eager and happy to take part. There was an advert placed in a newspaper, which they replied to, which stated that this was an experiment to do with memory, learning and memory. So fully informed consent was not here, because they truly believed they were taking part in an experiment on learning and memory. Now, there was also direct mail shots, which basically just means through your door, to take part in this experiment, and they got paid $4, which in 1963 was a fair bit of money, and 50 cents for travelling costs to the university. Now, this picture you can see here is a plan how Milgram was going to set out the experimenter. He would have the experimenter, the E person, in a white coat, the authority figure in the same room as the 40 male participants, and the learner would be strapped in a separate room, so could not be seen but could be heard by the teacher who's administering the shocks. Now, there are two male confederates in this experiment. And how it starts is the participant arrives at the university, and they're given a rigged drawer, an envelope, and in the envelope they always pull that they are the teacher. So they truly believe they have an equal chance of being picked to be the learner or the teacher. However, it is rigged. There will always be the teacher, and the teacher is the person who gives the electric shocks. The learner is Mr. Wallace, an accountant who's a Confederate. That means he knows exactly what's going on and is part of the experiment. He is always going to be the one who gets the electric shocks. Now, there is controls in this experiment, because it is an experiment, and they come in the form of prods. Now, at some point, Milgram's expecting these 40 middle-class males to not be happy about this. Mr. Wallace does state as he sits down that he has a heart condition, and he does show signs of verbal distress throughout the whole experiment. So in order to keep these going, they have prod 1, which is please continue. The experiment requires you continue, is prod 2. Prod 3 is it is absolutely essential that you continue. And prod 4, you have no other choice, please continue. Now, these standardised prods are what our experimenter or authority figure must say to the teacher. He does say other things. You'll see in the video that you're watching in class that although the shocks may be painful, there is no permanent tissue damage, so please go on. And these further prods were used if basically the teacher spoke back at him, so other language was used, and this is recorded in the qualitative data. So I think you'll agree this is a mega interesting experiment, and we will now, this is the end of this video, and we'll go on and we'll look at the results. So what did those middle class men from New Haven do to the learner? Did they electrocute him to the point where they would cause damage, cause pain, to the point where it sounds like the man has collapsed? Will he still